In this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to create a basic calculator using Python language. In my previous video, I did a tutorial on how to get input from a user. So for us to create a basic calculator in Python, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create two variables carrying two numbers, and I'm going to prompt the user to enter the two numbers after running the program at the console. So the first thing I'm going to do here is I can just say number one. I've decided to call my first variable as number one space. Then I'm going to add input. After input, I will have parentheses. Then after parentheses, inside the parentheses, I will have what is called speech marks, because I want to pass some strings inside the speech mark. So I can say enter number. That will be my first number that I will be able to enter. I can end this with a colon. Now the second thing I'm going to do here is I will require the same thing, so I can just copy this. Remember, I said I'm creating two numbers because I want to prompt the user to enter the two numbers. So I can copy this, then press enter. After pressing enter, I will paste the same statement below. So I will have number 2, and then inside here I will have a statement saying enter another number. Now that's what we have. So already we have two variables created, and the next thing I'm going to do below this is that I'm going to say I'm going to print num1 plus number 2. So you can see I will have number 1 space plus number 2. So in other words, I'm trying to add these two numbers. So up to this point, I want to run this program. I want to really see what will happen when I run this program here. So let me try and run this program, and you can see at the console I have a prompt message telling me to enter number. So I can enter any number here. Let me say a number like 3. Then when I press enter, the system will tell me to enter another number. So I can enter another number, and I can say 6. And when I press enter, you can see I am not getting any result. I should get 9 because I used addition sign between num1 and num2, but I'm not able to get that correct result, because basically Python is just going into my system, and instead of adding the two numbers, Python is just picking the variables that I have entered, that is 3 and 6, and therefore that means we have to make our calculator better. So the thing I can do is I can come here and say result. I can say result, then add equal sign here. Then after that I will come below this program, and I'm going to say print result. I'm going to say print result, and therefore I will run the program again, and I will try to enter the number. So I will come and run this here, and after running that program, you can see I have enter number. I will enter another number. I can enter again 3, then I enter another number like 6. So when I press enter, you can see I'm getting 36, while in the real sense 3 plus 6 should be 9. That means the system is still taking the variables I'm putting inside my programming, and instead of adding them, the system is just printing directly the two variables that I have entered or I am trying to put after the prompt message, that is enter number and enter another number. Now how can we correct this? When you are building a calculator, a basic calculator, you must always specify for the Python that which type of data are you using. In terms of numbers, we have different functions, or we have different data types that we can use. For example, we can talk of integers and we can talk of double or float. So for you to obtain an accurate result when you are handling a basic calculator in Python, you must always tell the language or the Python language that I want you to add these two integers and get me the result. So this is how it works. When I'm handling numbers, if I want to cater for both whole numbers and decimal numbers, I will use float. And when I just want to add the normal integers like 6, or just whole numbers like 6, 7, 9 or 3, I will use integer. So the first thing I will do here is I will come and write int, and this is a function in Python that we can use when adding normal numbers or subtracting integers. So I will add parentheses after that, then I will close this at that point. So the same thing here, I will add what is called int. Basically what I'm doing, I'm just telling Python that I want you to add two whole numbers, because whole numbers are just integers. So the function is called int in Python. I will also close this one, then I will try to run the system again. So when I run, you can see at my console I'm having enter number. I can enter number like 7, press enter, enter another number like 8, press enter, and now you can see I'm getting 15 as the result here. That means now Python is able to add the two numbers because you have specified and you have said that you are using whole numbers. So you introduced an int function, that is the integer. Therefore, that is why Python is able to add the two numbers. What if I try to add decimal numbers using the same function I have written, the int function? What will really happen? So let's check. I will come here and have something like 2.5. I can have a number like 2.5. Press enter, then put another number like 7.3. When I press enter to see the outcome here, you can see that I'm getting an error, and the error reads invalid literal for int with base 10, 2.5 etc. So this means that when I use int function while creating a basic calculator, it means it cannot cater for both whole numbers and decimal numbers, and therefore you must look for a way in which you can be able to work with decimal numbers while doing such operations in Python. That is the basic arithmetics. Now, how can we solve this? What if I use float instead of int function? So I come here and add what is called float, and I've said this is just a Python function that we use when handling decimal numbers and whole numbers put together. So I will run this program, then I will use the same values that I was using. So I can have 2.5 here, press enter, then I will have another number like 9.3, then I will press enter again, and you can see I'm now getting 11.8. That means for me to cater for decimal numbers, I should use float instead of int. What if I add whole numbers? I will also try that. I want to see if float will really cater for all numbers. So I can have 5 plus 4, and that will give me 9.0. It's giving the answer to one decimal place. That means float can cater for both whole numbers and decimal numbers. So anytime you are creating a basic calculator as a Python beginner or a Python programmer, you must always bear in mind that not all the times you can use integer. You have to specify. If you want to cater for all numbers, use float, and that will allow you do everything you want with numbers in Python. I can come and change this sign here. What if I want to subtract the two numbers? I can put subtraction sign here, and then I will run this program. After running the program, I will have a number like, sorry, there's some error here. So let me run the program again. I want to have a number like 90 minus, let me say a number like 47. I want to really see if this system will perform the subtraction properly. So let me have 90 minus a number like 43, and I can see I am having 47.0. So that means Python will be able to perform that operation when you do the subtraction. So it doesn't matter when it comes to the sign you want to use here. You can use any. I can even use multiplication, subtraction, addition, division, and so on. So always consider that if you don't introduce any data type in Python while making a basic calculator, the Python will literally take the values you are entering after seeing the prompt message, that is enter number and enter another number, and it will just print them directly at the console. So you must always specify, then lastly print result. In my next tutorial, I'm going to show you list functions. So I can just have here list functions. And for those who have interacted with programming before, I believe you know what list is. We also have list in languages like HTML, etc. So in Python, when one is creating a list, most cases we use what is called square brackets. So I can create a list in my program here, and I can say like good numbers, or any name you can call your list phrase, you can call your list my best names, you can call your anything you like, you can call your list. So you are not restricted when choosing a name to call your list. I'm going to call my list good underscore numbers. I want to store some information inside my list, so I will create it, and it will appear like I'm creating some variable and I'm storing some numbers inside. But now what shows that it is a list is because I'm using a square bracket to store the good numbers that I want to have here. So I can say good numbers, create space equal sign, then I'm going to add square bracket here. So I can have a number like 4, 6, 8, 10. So these are my good numbers here. That is my first list, and I can just leave that there. I can press enter again, and I can create another list. I can call this list friends, create space equal sign, and I'm going to do the same thing. So I'm going to add square brackets there, and then I'm going to add what is called speech marks. So here I want to store some names here, so I can have the first person called Kosi come out of that. comma, then I'm going to have another name here. I can say Shem, come out again, comma, and then I can have the third person. So we can call the third person John. So I have some friends here. Now I have two lists here, and below this I can just press enter and I will say print. I can just say print friends, because I want to really see if I will be able to print my list at the console. So that is what I have. Now I want to run this program and see what I'll get at the console. Now when I run this program, you can see I'm having Kosi, Shem, John on the console. In other words, the Python is printing my friends list on the console. Now there are a number of functions I can do, or I can use with the list in Python. So the first function that I can do, remember I have not printed the first list that was good numbers. So what I can really do here is simple. The first function I can use with list is called extend function, and this extend function will allow me to print both lists at once on my console. You should ask yourself a question: what if I want to print both good numbers and friends together? I don't want to print them one by one, so I'm going to use a function called extend function, and this one will allow me to print both good numbers and friends. So I will come and type friends, then I'll have dot extend, and after having dot extend I'm going to introduce parentheses at the end. So inside that parenthesis I'm going to have the name of the first list that I want to print alongside the friends list. So I'm going to type good numbers, and when I run this program I should be able to get both lists on my console. And you can see when I run that program, the first part of my system or my list is having Kosi, Shem, and John, and then the second part is having my good numbers. So you must always know that is a function one can use in Python when you want to print two lists together. The next one is append. If I want to append my list, there is a function called append. What append does is simple. What if I want to add another name in this list? And that is what append will always do. So I will come and say friends, then after friends I will have another function called append, and I've said append will allow me to add another name in the list that is already existing here. So let me assume I want 4 people in this list, but for now I have 3. I can decide to add another name that will come at the end. So I will have speech marks, then I can have a name like Junior, and when I run this program something will happen. I want you to check my console. If you check my console you can see Junior has been added into my list. So that means if I want to add a character or another name inside my list, I can use a function called append. The next function you can use with list is remove. I can just delete append here and have remove. So remove, we use it to remove names from the list. For example, if I don't want Shem in this list, I can just come and put Shem inside my speech mark. So when I run this program, you will realize that Shem will not be printed at the console. We will only see Kosi and John printed at the console. So let me run that, check my console. You can see I only have two names, that is Kosi and John. The next function you can do with Python is called clear. I think remove is self-explanatory. You can understand that better. The next one is clear. I don't want to print anything from my list on the console, so I will use a function called clear, and the parentheses will be free. It should not have anything. So when I run this, you will realize that nothing will be printed at the console. You can see I'm only having a blank square brackets at the console. So that is clear function. I also have another function called sort. I have another function called sort, and what sort does is it will arrange my list following the alphabetical order from A to Z. So when I run this program, you will see the arrangement at the console. I will have Kosi followed by John, then Shem will come last because it begins with letter S. That means he's following the alphabetical order, and that is what sort does. So those are possible functions one can use with Python language. I'm forgetting one, it's called reverse. I can also reverse the list. So this list will start printing from John all the way to Kosi, because I'm reversing the list. Instead of having to print from Kosi, I can print from John followed by Shem, then Kosi. So when I run that, you will be able to see that on my console, because a reverse will always change the list arrangement as it appears on the codes. The next thing we are going to do is called tuple. I know now you are good with list. You can do more. There are more functions. You can just get into Google and check other functions you can work with when it comes to list in Python. Now a tuple, tuples in Python is just a data structure, which means it's a container where we can store multiple pieces of information. A tuple is just like a list, but it has some partial differences when it's compared to a list. For example, information in a tuple is immutable. That means you cannot make any changes when an information has been stored in a tuple. So if you want to store an information that no one can alter or make changes on, you can store an information on a tuple. And the good example of a tuple we can say are coordinates. So I want to start with that. Let me try to create some tuple here. So let me have something like coordinates. I want to store some coordinates here. We'll create space equal sign, then I will have parentheses here. So I can have a number like 4,6. Remember, coordinates are given in form of x and y. So I can have something like 4.8, and that is a tuple I'm trying to create. Now how will I access this information? So I can just come down here and print. Coordinates. I can just come and say I want to print coordinates, because I want to really see if I will get exactly what is inside my coordinates. So how will I access this? Remember, it's given in form of x and y, so I will add some square brackets inside here, and then I will have a number like 0 inside that square bracket. So when I run this program, I will try to see what will be printed on the console. You can see I'm printing 4, and that means if you check this coordinate, 4 falls at 0 and 8 falls at 1. So if I want to access what is at 0, I will print 0. After coordinates, you introduce square bracket, then inside the square bracket you have 0. If I want to print 8, I will say at 1. So if I run this program, instead of printing 4, I will have 8 at the console, and you can see that. I said before that information in a tuple cannot be modified. It is immutable. You cannot change information stored in a tuple, unlike I was doing in the list. In the list, I was able to add information, remove some information, change some information. In a tuple, you cannot do that. Let's try practically and see. For example, let's say I want to change the coordinate at position 1, and therefore I can say and write coordinates here, create space equal sign, then I'm going to have some square bracket there, then I will have 1 inside here, and after having 1 there, I can say space, this one equals to 10. What I'm trying to do here is simple. Sorry, we should not have equal sign here. What I'm trying to do here is very simple. I'm telling this system that at point 1, I want you to change the character at point 1 to 10. So that is what I'm trying to do. I want to really check if that will work. So when you run this program, definitely you will get an error. Python will give you an error. That means tuple object does not support item assignment. You cannot alter information stored in a tuple. It will remain the way it is. So you should know that. The best term for programmers is information in a tuple is immutable. So you should always remember that. It is not a must to store only 2 numbers in a tuple. I can store as much as possible. So let me go back to this point. Now I can come here and delete this 4, 8. Then after deleting it, I can have square bracket. After having square bracket there, I'm going to store now a number of coordinates inside that square bracket. I can have that, then I can have speech marks inside there. I'm going to have not really speech mark, but I can just have the number directly, like 4, let me say 4, 3, and after having that, I will come outside here, that bracket, and then I'm going to introduce another comma. Then after comma, I'm going to create another bracket, the parenthesis, so I can have 8, 6. And now you can see I have different coordinates here. I can also add the third one, comma, then I'm going to introduce parenthesis, and after the parenthesis I can have a number like 2, 6. Now I have 3 coordinates here. This means if I say I want to print the coordinate at position 1, then the system will print for me 8, 6. If I see it at 0, it will print for me 4, 3. If I say it at 2, it will print for me 2, 4. That is how a tuple works when you store something like coordinates in it. So let me run this program. You can see my console. I'm printing 8, 6. That means 8, 6 as a coordinate falls at position 1. This also uses the array format. Remember, arrays begins from 0 onwards, and that is what this is doing. It's saying that 4, 3 falls at 0, 8, 6 at 1, and 2, 6 at 2. So you should always know how tuples work and the differences between tuple and the list in Python. The next thing we are doing is called functions. In the next tutorial, I'm going to show you how functions can be written in Python. So we will have our comment reading functions, and function is just a Python code that we write, and it's used to give instructions, or it's just written to perform a specific task. For example, I can write a function that will greet a user or do anything else. So we have different, or we have a number of functions in Python. Now anytime you hear something to do with functions in Python, what should come in your mind first is the term def. This is what we use for functions. So for example, if I want to create a simple function here that will just say hello to a student, I can just say def or def, and then I can just give the function some name here. It's like I'm creating a variable. So I can say hi, and I will have some underscore here and say hi, then followed by parentheses. I will end this with a colon. Then after colon, I will press enter, and below that I can have something like print. Then I'm going to introduce parentheses, and inside the parentheses I'm going to have the string, what I want the system or the function to display on the console so that the user can see. So I'm going to say hello student. In other words, I'm just trying to create a simple system that will say hi or hello to a student. Now when you run this program, you will not be able to get anything printed on the console. The reason is because anytime you create a function in Python, you must be in a position to call that function. If you don't call a function, it will never work. So how do we call functions in Python? How do we call functions in Python? So what I'm going to do here is very simple. For us to call a function, you should come and take the name you give your function up here. Remember, I was calling it say hi, and therefore I want to call that function now down here. So for me to call that function, I'm just going to say, say hi. Then after that I'm going to add some brackets here, and I'm going to pass some name here, a name like any name. Let me say John. Let me say a name like John. John is a string, so anytime you are writing a name like John, you must ensure it's inside speech marks. You must make sure it's inside speech mark. So I can run this system, and you will see I'm having some line 6 in module. Say hi, then I'm having John. So let me try to correct the error. Let me try to correct the error. Let me remove this first. I want to call this function first and see if it's really working without including the name. Oh, I've seen the problem. I only want this function to say hello to the student, so I should not add something inside here. Unless I want to add another information, that is when I will add a name inside the say hi section. So you can see I have my function working and it's saying hello student here at the console. So that is a simple function I've written that says hello to a student. What if I can make my function better and I can try to pass some parameters inside my function? For example, I can come here inside the say hi, a bracket, then I'm going to add something like name. Then inside here, I'm going to delete student. I'm going to remain with the hello only. I will create some space there, then create another space here, add a plus sign. Then I'm going to say something like name. After that, I will come inside here where I was calling my function, and I'm going to have the name I deleted before. Now I'm trying to pass some parameters, and you can see now I have name here, and therefore I must include the name now. So let me have a name like John, and it should be inside speech marks. So I'm going to have a name like John inside here. So I'm writing a function that when I execute or when I run this program, it should tell me hello John at the console. So that is one way you can use to pass a parameter in your function or Python function. So you can see here the system is printing hello John. So that is a good example. There's a number of functions in Python. You can check more and more later and know how functions work when it comes to Python. The next thing, or in the next tutorial, I want to show you how to use return statements in Python. And return statements are just Python functions or Python statements that we can write in order to perform specific function. For example, I can write a function under return statement, and I will tell the function to double or to cube for me a certain number, numbers like 3 cubed, 4 cubed, and so on. I said before that anytime you want to write a function in Python, you must know that there is a statement called def, the def function, and you must always begin with that anytime you are handling functions. So I want to do return statements, and this return statement, I will just write it in a way like I'm giving a Python language instruction, for example, to cube for me a number, and I will get an answer in return. That is what return statement does. So let's try one here. Remember, it's a function, so I will say def, then I will have a number like cube, then after cube I'm going to have parentheses, and then I'm going to have the number inside there. I can end this with a colon, press enter, then I'm going to have number, the first number, times the second number, times the third number. Don't forget that I'm creating a return statement that will cube for me a certain number, and I'll be waiting to see the result. So there we are. I can have something like print, then after having print, inside the parentheses I'm going to have something like cube because I want to cube the number. Then I'm going to have another parenthesis here where I will include the number that I want to be cubed. So I'm using a number like 3, and I'm going to run this program and see if I will get the outcome. So when I run this program, you can see I'm getting none. Instead of cubing 3, I'm getting nothing here. I was creating what is called return statements, and therefore you can see I have not used any word to do with return in this function here that I'm writing. So for you to obtain a result here, you must return. You must tell the system that I want you to cube this number, and then after cubing the number, return for me the answer at the console because I want to see. So you will come here before writing num1 times number2 times number3, and you will add a return statement. So we can say return, then create some space there, and then after creating the space, you will have num1 times number2 times number3. So I will try to run this again and see the outcome. So you can see I have 27. I've just included the return statement now. So the system will cube 3, and then in return I will get 27. That is what return statements do in Python programming language. So that is a good example of a return statement function that one can write in Python. I can even make my return statement better than it is. So what will I do? You need to question yourself. So I can just come below this number1 times number2 times number3. Then I can have something like return. I can say return space equals to, then I'm going to introduce parentheses. Then after parentheses, I can have something like cube. I can have something like cube. Then after cube, this cube should not be in bracket. I should just have cube. Then after cube, I'm going to have parentheses here. So I'm telling this system to cube for me a certain number. For example, let me say 4. I don't want to use 3 now. Then after that, now I'm going to say that after cubing 4, then print for me what is called result. Cube 4, then print for me what is called result. So I can have result inside here. I can have result inside here. So this one can also work better when you run the program. You can be able to get the answer printed at the console. So those are possible things you can do with Python programming language, as in a return statement should be able to do all that. So thanks for watching. See you in the next tutorial.